Welcome to Opportunity Crude's Management Seminar Series, an informative look at crude processing challenges. Disclaimers. The purpose of the OCMS series is to provide refiners with the latest information in processing opportunity or price-advantaged crudes, such as heavy sour oil, oil sand bitumen, light tight oil, and highly acidic crudes so that they can make better decisions in light of a volatile oil market. Video number 10, What about BoB, bottom of barrel? Nowadays, more refiners around the world are buying discounted heavy oil, which has a considerable portion of residual fuel oil or RFO or bottom. This is problematic because the demand for the highly asphaltenic, high sulfur content RFO is expected to decrease in traditional markets. This is in part due to increasingly stringent environmental legislation, which include the International Maritime Organization or IMO's mandated 0.5% sulfur specification starting in 2020 for fuel used in ocean-going vessels traveling to the dedicated emissions control areas, and anticipated climate change rules that will favor natural gas over fuel oil as power plant feed. The decrease in demand for RFO for power generation and bunker fuel may force refiners to invest in bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading. Today's video will cover various topics related to bottoms and bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading in the following sections. The first section, bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading in the news, will cover recent news on refiners around the world making investments in the refinery to upgrade high-sulfur bottoms to other products, which include fuels to comply with IMO 0.5% sulfur spec. World of Conventional Heavy Oil will discuss trends in heavy oil production and the locations of heavy oil deposits. The video will then cover the various options for bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading, which include coking, solvent deasphalting, visbreaking, RESID fluid catalytic cracking, RESID hydrotreating, and RESID hydrocracking. We will conclude the video by comparing methods for bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading and later provide a general outlook for the bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading practice. This diagram illustrates the 6 options for RESID upgrading that we will discuss in today's video. These options are coking, solvent deasphalting, visbreaking, RESID fluid catalytic cracking, RESID hydrotreating, and RESID hydrocracking. To highlight the differences in bottoms between heavy and conventional oil, the following table shows the properties, particularly the volume percent resid fraction, for a number of heavy crude grades, which is defined as having an API of 10 to 26 degrees API, from around the world. The volume percent of resid of these heavy crudes range from 36.7 to 42. In comparison, conventional crudes such as the benchmark Brent with an API of 37 to 39 degrees API and West Texas Intermediate with an API of 39.1 degrees API only have volume percent values of resid of 9 to 11 and 6, respectively. Navigate oil market uncertainty and supply disruption in refining at the 6th Opportunity Crudes Conference in Houston, Texas in the U.S. from October 22 to the 24th, 2018. The theme of the conference is Crude Disruptors, Accelerating Changes in Global Refining. Higher oil output and refining price advantage. Domestic light tight oil has benefited international oil majors and U.S. independent refiners in the first quarter, respectively, according to just released earning results. Unfortunately, the good news will end soon as the oil market is going to enter an uncertain time since the price rout in mid-2014. A dark cloud is forming as driven by 2 formidable forces, geopolitical risks and changing supply-demand fundamentals. Change is not new in the refining world, but disruption of crude sources could significantly upset overall refinery operations in terms of crude management, processing, and product quality and volume. Our attendees will learn from conference speakers and network with colleagues on how refiners can navigate present market uncertainty and crude supply disruption by devising better business strategies, finding ways to increase operational flexibility, and adopting new technologies to turn challenges into opportunities. As in our previous meetings, this conference is expected to be highly productive and rewarding because of excellent speakers, timely theme, well-organized agenda, and stimulating atmosphere to encourage exchange of ideas. 5 topical sessions in 2.5 days include: Session 1, Global Oil Market Outlooks, Geopolitics, U.S. Pro-Export Policy, OPEC Strategies, Peak Demand. Session 2, Challenges and Opportunities in Oil Trading, Exports, Imports and Infrastructure Logistics. Session 3, Crude Contaminants, Incompatibility, Blending Strategies Amid Changing Feedstocks. Session 4, Flexibility of Light-Tight Oil Processing and Bottoms Upgrading to Make Products in Demand. Session 5, Big Data Analytics and Emerging Adoption of Internet of Things in Crude Selection, Management, and Refining. In this celebrated biennial meeting, you will meet colleagues from many companies around the world. The Opportunity Crudes meeting from October 22 to the morning of October 24 is coordinated with Crude Oil Quality Association's fall meeting, which will be held on October 24 and October 25 to benefit from synergy in serving our upstream, midstream, and downstream colleagues. To save up to $300 before June 1, register today by visiting opportunitycrudes.com/Houston 2018. Here is a preliminary agenda for the 6th Opportunity Crudes Conference. In the United States, refiners are expected to have enough coking capacity to meet IMO 0.5% sulfur spec for the bunker pool in 2020 without having to invest in upgrades. One U.S. refiner noted that it could restart an idled 9,000 barrel per day coker at its 190,000 barrel per day refinery in Calumet, Louisiana to meet the new IMO spec. Additionally, U.S. refineries also have the ability to increase production of low-sulfur distillates, which has been estimated to need to be increased to 2 million barrels per day. This is expected to be the main method for meeting the new IMO sulfur spec in the short term. An analyst from Wood Mackenzie expects the new regulations will lead to a rise in demand for gas oil from the bunker pool. In Belgium, a refiner will start cutting high-sulfur fuel oil with a sulfur deasphalting or SDA unit in early 2018. The refiner stated it will be able to produce 10 part per million sulfur diesel and other clean fuels from bitumen and high-sulfur fuel oil. Additional refiners in Europe are planning to add new SDA capacity. Another refinery in Belgium has plans to operate a delayed coker starting in the first half of 2018 at its 320,000 barrel per day refinery in Antwerp. High-sulfur fuel oil will be used to produce bunker fuels that meet IMO specs by 2020. As reported in the September 25, 2017 issue of Worldwide Refining Business Digest. By Hydrocarbon Publishing Company, Giacomo Romeo of Macquarie Capital expects 200,000 barrels per day of coking capacity will be added in European refineries to meet the upcoming IMO spec. A Spanish refiner has considered investing $2 billion in a new residual hydrocracking unit to convert heavy fuels to middle distillates to meet the new spec. A number of refineries in Asia and the Middle East will add coking capacity to their operations. In 2018, a Japanese refiner said on March 20 that 1 billion yen or $103 million would be invested to expand the capacity of the 29,000 barrel per day coker at its 100,000 barrel per day Sakai refinery to 31,000 barrels per day during a major turnaround at the plant next year. Expanding coker capacity will allow the company to minimize high-sulfur fuel oil output, as the company plans to process residue from its 86,000 barrel per day Yokkaichi refinery in central Japan at the expanded coker. Last year the refiner produced 1 million metric tons or 6.29 million barrels of high-sulfur fuel oil. In 2018, Saudi Aramco plans to add 104,000 barrels per day of delayed coking capacity to a $7 billion refinery in Jazan, which is expected to start running later in the year. In 2019, an Indonesian consortium plans to start up a refinery in central Sulawesi with 78,000 barrels per day of delayed coking. A Venezuelan-owned refinery in Jinan, China has plans for 153,000 barrels per day of delayed coking capacity by 2020. In 2022, it is estimated that a total of 143,000 barrels per day of delayed coking capacity will be started up among 4 planned refineries in Turkey, Egypt, China, and Brunei. In South Korea, Multiple local firms have announced investments totaling over $5 billion to upgrade plants in response to the new IMO spec. An oil company plans to add a new SDA unit as well as upgrade existing coking and hydrocracking units. The company said these 3 units will help increase output of low-sulfur gas oil. Meanwhile, a petroleum company is upgrading a $4.8 trillion or $4.3 billion residue fuel oil upgrading and olefin production facility, which is set to come online in the first half of 2019. Another South Korean oil company is spending $900 million to build a new 40,000 barrel per day vacuum residue desulfurization unit by 2020. In 2015, the production shares of all grades defined by API gravity and sulfur content were medium and sour at 39.6%, light and sweet at 18.5%, medium and sweet at 10.5%, heavy and sour at 9.0%, light and medium sour at 5.0%, ultra-light or condensate at 4.4%, medium and medium sour at 4.2%. Heavy and medium sour at 2.4%, light and sour at 3.1%, heavy and sweet at 2.3% and unassigned grades at 0.9%. The following table shows global crude production in thousands of barrels per day of different grades of crude. In terms of production growth from 2000 to 2015, the most was seen with ultralight, or condensate, followed by heavy and sweet, light and medium sour, medium and medium sour, heavy and sour, heavy and medium sour, and medium and sour, with no significant production increase in light and sour and medium and sweet, and slight decline in light and sweet. The 3 heavy grades listed have all shown an increase in production in the 15 years. The production share pattern is the same as what was reported in ENI's 2005 report. This figure from Ivanhoe Energy displays the locations of heavy oil deposits around the globe. According to data from Total, Canada has the world's largest reserves of heavy oil, with an estimated 1.7 trillion barrels in the ground. Venezuela is next with 1.24 trillion barrels, followed by the U.S. with 650 billion barrels, the Commonwealth of Independent States, which include Russia and its neighbors with 420 billion barrels, the Middle East with 240 billion barrels, Central America and Africa with 100 billion barrels each, and 60 billion barrels in the Far East. According to the U.S. Geological Survey or USGS, there are 5.478 trillion barrels worth of reserves of oil sands bitumen, found in Canada, and extra heavy oil or EHO, found in Venezuela. Note: the quantity of oil that is actually recoverable is much less than this amount. Over 50% or around 1.73 trillion barrels of the bitumen in place is found at 3 Albertan oil sands locations, Athabasca, Cold Lake, and Peace River. The Orinoco Belt in Venezuela contains around 90% or around 1.9 trillion barrels of the extra heavy oil in place, but only has 513 billion barrels of technically recoverable heavy oil. The distribution of in-place bitumen and EHO in different parts of the world is shown in this table. The characteristics of bitumen and EHO are similar to those of the resids obtained from the distillation of conventional crude oils, except that bitumen and EHO tend to have a higher metals content. The primary distinction between bitumen and EHO is in their viscosities. EHO has a dynamic viscosity at 38 degrees Celsius of less than 10,000 centipoise, whereas the figure for bitumen is well over 100,000 centipoise. Due to their similar properties, many of the technologies employed for processing bitumen and extra heavy crudes will be comparable to those employed within the refinery fence to process resid streams. Furthermore, shifts to heavier crude streams will likely result in an increasing quantity of resid to be handled in the refinery. Coking is a carbon rejection method achieved through the severe thermal cracking of heavy hydrocarbon feeds, most typically vacuum resid feeds. The rejected carbon takes the form of petroleum coke, which is then calcined in further steps to remove entrained hydrocarbons. The coke product directly from the coker is called green coke. Carbon content can be further increased by calcination at temperatures between 1800 and 2400 degrees Fahrenheit or 980 to 1315 degrees Celsius. The three main types of coking processes available to the petroleum industry are delayed coking, flexi-coking, and fluid coking, all three of which will be discussed later in the video. Delayed coking, which is the most popular method, involves the feed being charged to the bottom of a fractionator where it is refluxed against hot vapors entering from the in-service coke drum. The fractionator bottoms are then sent through a fired heater to a large coking drum at a high velocity, which shortens the residence time in the horizontal heater tubes and delays the bulk of the coking reactions until the drums are reached, hence the name delayed coking. A stream of heavy coker gas oil is condensed while the remaining vapors are cooled and separated into gas and liquid products as they ascend through the fractionation tower. A generalized diagram of the delayed coking process is depicted in this figure. Coke collected in the drum have three general categories. Needle coke exhibits microscopic anisotropic particles and evolved from processing aromatic feedstocks at high pressures greater than 100 psi gauge or 690 kilopascals and high recycle ratios, such as 1:1. Sponge coke is characterized by irregular particles ranging from 50 centimeters or 1.64 feet down to dust. It is typically produced from low sulfur, low metals vacuum resids. Shot coke is usually an unintentional product when processing very heavy residual feeds. The particles can exceed 20 centimeters or 0.66 feet, but are not a useful product as the particle surface areas are much less than sponge coke, and they do not have useful characteristics for manufacturing electrodes like needle coke. The coke in the drum is used for fuel. The manufacture of anodes for electrolytic alumina reduction. As a carbon source for the production of elemental phosphorus, calcium carbide, and silicon carbide. The manufacture of electrodes used in electric furnace production of phosphorus, titanium dioxide, calcium carbide, and silicon carbide. The manufacture of graphite and is feedstock to a gasifier for utilities and/or chemicals production. In flexi-coking, the coker feed is preheated between 600 to 700 degrees Fahrenheit or 315 to 370 degrees Celsius and injected into a reactor to be contacted with a hot fluidized bed of coke. The hot coke provides enough heat to vaporize the feed and drive endothermic cracking reactions. The reactor temperature is maintained between 950 and 1000 degrees Fahrenheit or 510 to 540 degrees Celsius by adjusting the feed rate of the hot coke that comes into contact with the feed. Cracked vapors travel upward in the reactor and pass through cyclone separators to remove coke particles. The top of the reactor is typically scrubbed with wash oil, which condenses some of the heavier hydrocarbon components, sending them back into the reaction zone. The wash oil also reduces the amount of entrained coke particles in the gas product. The new coke produced from the cracking reactions will deposit on the hot coke particles, which are stripped with steam before flowing out of the reactor to the heater where coke particles are heated in a fluidized bed to 1100 degrees Fahrenheit or 593 degrees Celsius. The coke not recycled to the reactor flows further to a gasification reactor to react with air and steam at temperatures ranging from 1500 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit or 816 to 982 degrees Celsius. The product fuel gas consists of predominantly carbon monoxide, hydrogen gas, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen gas. This hot gas is then recycled back to the heater to be used as a heat source. The coke gas from the heater exits from the top before passing through a waste heat boiler. The stream is further purified through external cyclones and a Venturi wet scrubber before being sent to the sulfur recovery unit. Flexi-coking designs are capable of gasifying 60 to 98% of the coke produced in the reactor. The coke gas has a heating value of 100 to 130 British thermal units per standard cubic foot, which is much less than the 900 to 1000 British thermal units per standard cubic foot obtainable from natural gas. Fluid coking is a simplified version of flexi coking and is similar to the FCC process in many aspects. There are typically two vessels, a fluidized bed reactor with a steam stripping zone and a burner vessel. In the burner vessel, only enough coke is combusted to meet the heating requirements of the endothermic cracking reactions. The remaining coke, typically 75 to 88% of the total, is withdrawn from the burner. The coke yield from a fluid coker is typically 75 to 88% of the coke yield for a delayed coker. Flexicooking yields to 48% of what a delayed coker yields. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that license commercial coking technologies. Solvent extraction and deasphalting processes, or what is more commonly known as solvent deasphalting or SDA, involve the use of hydrocarbons, such as propane, butanes, pentanes, or a mixture of these, to extract paraffinic components from heavy residue streams. Regardless of the level of impurities in the feedstock, these processes effectively produce deasphalted or DAO or demetallized oil. The terms DAO and demetallized oil are interchangeable. DAO product quality and yield are dependent upon the solvent that is selected for the process, as heavier solvents and increasing yields can decrease the product quality, such as metals, sulfur, nitrogen and Conradson carbon levels. This table displays the DAO quality specs when fed to various units, which include the FCC, mild hydrocracker, and lube plant, for further processing. The heavy, highly aromatic asphalt raffinate, or pitch, can be used in a number of ways, including as coker feed, gasification feed, road bitumen, etc. Recovering value from the heavy byproducts will be a crucial factor in the economic advantage of deasphalting units. SDA technology can also be flexibly applied in a number of areas in the refinery and in midstream heavy oil upgrading applications because of its relatively low energy intensity and the lack of an economy of scale, in which refiners may not need to install large SDA units but instead may use this technology for small and large-scale projects. This allows refiners to be able to improve bottoms processing capacity without negatively impacting efficiency. Furthermore, many integration opportunities exist to reduce the carbon footprint of the processing scheme. The size and placement of the unit will depend largely on the current refinery configuration, feed processed, and the desired product slate of the plant. Here is a general diagram of the sulfur deasphalting process. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that license commercial solvent deasphalting technologies. Introduced in 1939, visbreaking is a thermal conversion process. The process converts atmospheric or vacuum residues to gas, naphtha, distillates, and visbreaking residue to reduce the quantity of cutter stock required for fuel oils and increase overall distillate yield. Similarly, mild thermal cracking technologies can be applied to the same refinery streams, and in almost identical configurations, to achieve slightly higher conversion levels. Visbreaking and thermal cracking technologies operate at relatively mild conditions but have lower conversion levels compared to coking. In fact, almost 70 to 80% may not be converted and remain as high sulfur residual fuels. Other residue conversion techniques, such as coking, RESID FCC, RESID hydroprocessing, etc., are deployed at a higher rate because less residual fuels remain from these processes. However, these processes have high capital intensity, utilities consumption, and catalyst demands compared to visbreaking. Despite some interest in visbreaking, its competitive position is hampered by increasingly stringent environmental regulations and market demand for lighter products. Here is a block diagram of a general visbreaking process. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that offer commercial visbreaking technologies. Proprietary chemical additives can also be applied to mitigate the feed-based constraints of the unit, particularly when operating severity is increased in an attempt to increase conversion. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that offer such chemical additives. Differences between catalytic cracking units that process only gas oil feeds and those that process resid and other heavy feeds can be found in the feed injection, catalyst separation, catalyst stripping and catalyst regeneration systems. Among these, the difference in the feed injection system is most important. Heavier feeds are harder to vaporize, and this tends to increase delta coke and coke deposition in the catalyst separation system. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that license commercial RESID FCC technologies. Catalyst activity is critical for RFCC performance, as low catalytic activity can result in low conversion of the feed along with undesirable yields of gaseous products and coke. Zeolites that have high silicon to aluminum ratios when equilibrated, such as USY, provide lower delta coke. Moreover, the pore size distribution in the matrix is important, as the different sizes of pores have different functions. Macro pores that are more than 15 nanometers in size increase feed vaporization and bottoms conversion and aid in both strippability and metals dispersion. Mesopores, which range from 5 to 15 nanometers in size, ensure cracking of naphthenic molecules and removal of alkyl side chains of aromatics. Micropores, which are 2 to 5 nanometers in size, are involved along with zeolites in cracking straight alkyl chain molecules. Activity in the different pores based on size should be ranked in ascending order from macropores first, next mesopores, then finally micropores as having the most activity. The key features of modern RFCC catalysts that are designed to deal with the potential for lower conversion and increased delta coke when processing opportunity crude feeds, which have heavier molecules and higher metal content, include matrix structure and activity that would be able to promote pre-cracking of very heavy feed molecules to lighter hydrocarbons. Also, the matrix pore structure should also allow for high strippability of entrained hydrocarbons. Zeolite stability, which allows for cracking activity that converts lighter hydrocarbons into liquid products and reduces delta coke and dry gas. And passivation of metals to protect catalyst structure and inhibit catalysis of those dehydrogenation reactions that produce coke and gas. Here is a non-inclusive list of major FCC catalyst licensors that presented catalyst advances. RESID hydrotreating removes problematic materials and facilitates further processing by doing so. These problematic materials include sulfur, nitrogen, metals, and Conradson carbon residue. These heteroatoms and metals are removed from the resid by hydrogenating the aromatic molecules to produce products such as hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, water, and metal sulfides. While the heteroatoms are being removed, the highly carbonaceous asphaltenes are partially hydrogenated and converted to somewhat lighter products. The yield of the lighter materials from resid hydrotreating depends on the extent of the removal of contaminants, catalyst conditions, temperature, and catalyst cycle life. Yields are usually highest at the end of the run, where the temperature is highest and levels of thermal conversion and hydroconversion are significant. Resid hydrotreating processes generally are not considered to be conversion processes. Direct conversion to lighter products is difficult because metals and coke precursors present undermine catalytic hydroconversion and catalyst activity. Nickel and vanadium are known to poison active sites and reduce the surface area of the catalysts. Also, the operating pressure of existing units is the most serious limitation when attempting to achieve catalytic conversion. Although the maximum design temperature of the reactors may be high enough to permit conversion, the high level of coke precursors in the feedstock limits operation to lower temperatures to avoid rapid catalyst deactivation. This diagram depicts a general resid hydrotreating process. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that license resid hydrotreating technologies. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that license catalysts for resid hydrotreating. Resid hydrocracking. Like conventional hydrocracking, is oriented toward making high-quality distillate fuels. It is considered to be a popular alternative towards thermal residue conversion technologies such as coking, visbreaking, etc. This is partly due to significant yields of distillate obtained from the process, as residue hydrocracking processes convert a significant portion of the bottom's range streams to lighter products. In fact, when processing atmospheric and vacuum residues, there is a significant yield of distillate fuels and vacuum gas oil obtained. Yields for resid hydrocracking can range from 60 to 95%, depending on the process. Selectivity to diesel can be as high as 40 to 55% with a number of commercial resid hydrocracking processes. Vacuum gas oil produced from resid hydrocracking can be processed in downstream conversion units such as conventional hydrocracking, FCC, or RFCC to yield additional quantities of high-quality gasoline, diesel, and propylene. The presence of hydrogen in resid hydrocracking often causes the unconverted residue fractions to be hydrogenated and low in sulfur when passed through a resid hydrocracking reactor, which can be used for production of low-sulfur fuel oil. Furthermore, the use of hydroprocessing will result in lower levels of sulfur, nitrogen, and other contaminants in the liquid products compared to thermal conversion techniques. Process schemes for resid upgrading or hydrocracking are based on one of three types of reactor design: moving bed, or fixed bed for short, ebullited, or expanded bed, and slurry phase. Fixed bed units for hydrocracking resid provide the least conversion of the three types of reactors, and operate with higher quality feeds. Fixed bed units may be operated in two modes. In the first mode, about 35% of the 550 degrees Celsius or 1022 degrees Fahrenheit plus fraction is converted to desulfurized vacuum gas oil and fuel oil. The second mode conversion is up to 60% and products include vacuum gas oil along with some gas oil and naphtha. The unconverted resid is low in sulfur and is suitable as RFCC feedstock. The feed tolerable to fixed bed units can have at most 700 parts per million of nickel and vanadium, Conradson carbon residue in the range of 10 to 15 weight%, and asphaltene content from 3 to 8 weight%. Typical catalysts used for fixed bed reactors are made from cobalt molybdenum or nickel molybdenum on alumina silica, or zeolite supports. Compared to ebullated bed and slurry phase reactors, the catalyst loadings for fixed bed reactors are the most complex, comprising of multiple beds or layers of catalysts with different pore structures and activities. The different activities of catalysts include hydrometallization, asphaltene conversion, hydrodesulfurization, hydrodenitrogenation, and Conradson carbon conversion. Ebullated bed reactors use mixture of liquids and gases to expand the catalyst bed. This scheme allows for continuous addition of fresh catalyst and removal of spent catalyst, which helps deal with the concern of catalyst poisoning. Ebullated bed hydrocracking processes are appropriate for treating heavy feeds such as atmospheric resid and vacuum resid using catalysts with activities for hydrotreating, cracking, and removing metal contaminants. Previously, maximum resid conversion was reported to be 65%. But recent innovations have been applied to push this number up to 85% in some cases. Ebullated bed reactors are more capable of processing low-value feed compared to fixed bed units, as it can process feeds with more than 700 parts per million of nickel and vanadium, Conradson carbon residue in the range of 18 to 22 weight%, and asphaltene content from 10 to 18 weight%. Catalysts for ebullated bed reactors are generally the same as those for fixed bed reactors, which include those made from cobalt molybdenum or nickel molybdenum on alumina silica, or zeolite supports. The molybdenum in these catalysts is sometimes replaced with tungsten. These catalysts, however, have been shown to have limited conversion and may be subject to fouling. Catalysts in ebullated bed reactors usually have a smaller particle size than those of fixed bed reactors to help facilitate suspension and higher mechanical strength to resist abrasion. In slurry phase reactors, finely divided solids or soluble compounds are dispersed in the feed and then carried upward with hydrogen gas through a tubular reactor. The slurry phase configuration addresses the problem of asphaltene access to catalytic sites. The reactive phase is a slurry or suspension, and high turbulence is not required to suspend the particles. RESID conversion can be as high as 95 weight%, with asphaltene conversion being more than 90 weight%. Slurry phase reactors can handle feeds with high nickel, vanadium, Conradson carbon residue, and asphaltene content, similar to the properties of those used in ebulated bed reactors. This diagram depicts a slurry phase resid hydrocracking process. Slurry phase reactor catalysts are typically either carbon, such as coal or petroleum coke, that have been impregnated with metal salts or dispersed organometallic compounds, such as metal naphthanates. Without the impregnating metals, conversion with solid catalyst would be primarily a thermal process, resulting in high yields of cracked gases and coke. The solid catalysts usually exit the process with unconverted resid. Recovery of spent catalysts is impractical, so they are instead discarded, burned, or gasified with the pitch after use. Dispersed nanoscale molybdenum disulfide catalysts, on the other hand, are capable of being recovered or recycled. Here is a non-inclusive list of companies that license fixed bed reactors, ebulated bed technology, and slurry bed reactors. Generally speaking, the major criterion for the type and amount of catalyst used in resid hydrocracking reactors is the control of coke formation in the reactor. While many companies design catalysts specifically for the company's licensed process technology, other companies offer catalyst technologies that can be applied in various fixed bed or ebulated bed units to improve conversion and activity. Here is a non-inclusive list of such companies. Refiners have been favoring light, sweet grades on the spot market due to market volatility. This may necessitate the need for refiners to invest in bottom-of-barrel upgrading in order to maintain an competitive advantage. The decreasing demand for heavier products like fuel oil and increasing demand for light products like gasoline will necessitate more capacity for upgrading heavier streams into lighter, high-quality products. 3 bottom-of-barrel upgrading processes, coking, visbreaking, and solvent deasphalting can produce intermediate streams that can be further upgraded to high-quality products in downstream units such as FCCUs and hydrocrackers. Despite the popularity of coking, there has been difficulty in offloading byproduct coke such as petcoke, which has been banned for use in power generation due to environmental concerns. Visbreaking has been losing popularity due to decreased demand for fuel oil. While solvent deasphalting with ebulated bed hydrocrackers can have conversion levels of 90+%, this is still less than the 95+% conversion levels of slurry bed hydrocracking. Resid hydrocracking was the preferred bottom-of-the-barrel upgrading process in recent years given increasing demand for middle distillates around the world. Slurry bed units are usually preferred to ebulated bed units as slurry bed units gave higher conversion levels relative to ebulated bed units with 95+% conversion compared to around 65%. Given the excess hydrocracking capacity currently in operation, resid FCCUs may hold an advantage over resid hydrocracking units as they offer reduced capital and operating costs compared to resid hydrocracking units and also offer the flexibility based on market conditions to produce a wide range of products, such as gasoline, light cetane oil, and light olefins. However, CO2 emissions from RFCCUs have become a cause for concern. It is expected that resid hydrotreating will continue to be in demand as a pretreatment method for treating the heaviest feed streams prior to sending to downstream cracking units for further upgrading. A consultancy predicted that the new IMO spec of 0.5% of sulfur in marine fuels will not have an impact on demand for heavy crudes as the buildup of bottom-of-barrel upgrading capacity throughout Europe to limit fuel oil output will lead to a run on heavy grades which could drive up prices. Moreover, European energy firms transitioning to a low-carbon future coupled with ongoing refined product demand destruction could lead to closure of refineries in the region. This could present opportunities for refineries in other regions as it could free up some crude supply, including heavy crudes, to move to other parts of the globe. Thank you very much for watching our video. Please join us in May for video number 11, Solvent Deasphalting, Bob's Comeback Kid. Thank you to Baker Hughes GE for sponsoring this video. Sponsorship opportunities are still available for the rest of the seminar series. Please contact Matt Wonder at mwonder@hydrocarbonpublishing.com to sponsor a future video. Sign up today to receive our quarterly technology newsletter, Worldwide Refinery Processing Review. Since it was launched in 1998, the review has become the most authoritative and comprehensive publication of the latest refining technologies around the world. The review monitors commercial technology developments and competition, plant operation improvements and troubleshooting, and R&D trends for all processing units, from the front end to the back end, in a single source. Each issue covers 2 technology topics with the following sections: market and technology trends and opportunities, state-of-the-art technology, plant operations and practices, refining R&D alert, worldwide installed capacity, recent construction activity and completed construction projects, latest refining technology developments and licensing. As shown in the table, this year's subscription will cover 8 topics, 2 in each quarter. Apart from an annual subscription of the review, individual quarterly issues and individual technology topics are also available for purchase. For more information, contact us at review@hydrocarbonpublishing.com. Your comments are appreciated. Please send your comments to info@opportunitycrudes.com so we can enhance the value of upcoming seminars. Here are upcoming crude oil quality events. Disclaimers.